Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. The Situation Room is live on Spice FM, on KTN Home. We are now also live on YouTube. We had a challenge earlier in the morning. It's been sorted. Is it on?
Yeah,
it is, eh?
fine, yeah.
Okay. Everybody. Karibu sana, everybody who are now joining us on YouTube and also on Facebook live stream. Thank you very much for joining us. EcoBank is the Pan-African bank in 35 African markets and 4 outside of Africa. Those 4 are in?
They're in the UK, in France, China, and the UAE.
Okay.
The UAE is a country.
Okay.
City. All right, so 35 different markets across Africa. Let's focus on that for just a little bit, shall we? And so what does that mean, really? And actually in these other countries as well. What that means is that you're plugged into one platform in the country where you're domiciled, and if you should travel or you relocate, that doesn't mean that you need to shut down everything in terms of your banking and do something else. It just means that you get on the plane and you go where you're going, or if you're going by boat, or if you're walking, or whatever it is that you're doing. When you arrive at your destination, your banking details remain intact. And all you have to do is pick up with your mobile app and continue as though you never left. And that's the comfort that's offered to you by EcoBank's one platform. It's not a group of banks, it's a banking group. And they've realized that you can do business in a better way for a better Africa.
Very, very, very important. Also important for you to think of your plan. And of course, everybody has a plan. It's just some people have a plan that sounds, very well organized and formal. Others have a plan that's just in their head. They haven't put it down anywhere. But if you ask them today, what's your plan? My plan is to live at the coast by the end of this year. Or what else? So how do you get there? Well, I'm planning to move out of Nairobi, relocate from Nairobi, live by the coast. So what happens to your job? So I'm working on that. Those are plans, and plans are important. And ICEA Lion says, well, you've got a plan. Come, let's talk. Let's help you actualize that plan. Whatever plan you have, how do you bring it to life? Come talk to ICEA Lion. It will involve, of course, some part of financial planning, and that's where they come in. That's their strongest point. They will help you with that, right? Kenya is planning to continue borrowing to pay the next Eurobond. And Kenya is planning to repay all its debts. Plus, Kenya is also planning to continue developing and bringing in job opportunities into the country and making money. And Kenya is planning to be able to afford
Did
a good life.
Also mention that we're still planning to continue borrowing.
We are planning to continue borrowing.
Yes, okay.
And we're planning to pay. We are not planning to default.
No,
No.
That's not in the plan.
That's not in the plan. Our plan is to make sure that we repay all our debt. Now, whether the plan comes to life or not, it's a whole different matter, but at least our our plan is to repay. But now that we've been having this conversation about debt, odious debt, not odious debt, and all of that, so what happens after? How do we move this conversation from our current debt situation to probably future debt situations? Al Kags, the executive director of the Open Institute, is our guest this morning, and we're going to have that conversation with him. Al, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you here again.
I'm so excited to be here. Do you know this is the first time I'm on radio in 10 years? Yes. Apart from the virtual live that we did, this is the first time I'm in studio.
That was in radio as well.
Yes, but that didn't count for me.
Okay.
Being in studio is what counts. And the last time I was on Kiss 100, and that was 10 years ago.
And what were you discussing?
I don't even remember what we were talking about in those days. But the fact that, I'm back here, I'm really excited and I'm really happy. And I was telling you this morning that you're very special because you brought me out to the rural areas to come and sit here and talk about this big bad monster called debt.
It's a big one, eh?
It's a big one.
Okay. Let's talk about a big proverb from a small country. City.
Yes.
This week, where are we heading?
The kingdom, we're in the southern part of Africa. The kingdom of, it's written, they used to call it Swaziland, and the current name is written as Swatini, but it doesn't pronounce that way.
How do they pronounce it?
Swatini.
So the E is silent.
I'm not sure whether the E is silent or they just added an S to it. When you hear me whispering, it's because I'm not very clear how to pronounce it.
Right.
And I'm pronouncing it deliberately so that,
So it's written Eswatini, but it's not pronounced Eswatini.
No. The S, you start with S, not E.
Swatini.
Yes.
Surely. Okay.
A man who prides himself on his ancestry is like the potato plant. The best part is underground.
A man who prides in his ancestry is like the potato plant. The best part is?
Underground.
Alkags, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
Our most solid part of our lives is our history. Is the people who brought us to where we are right now. Unfortunately, that makes me really worried.
Why?
Because it means that if this is history 20 years from now, boy, are we doing a bad job of it.
We're the potato of the future.
We are the potato of the future, which means our grandkids are going to be in trouble.
They'll be looking at us and wondering, oh my goodness.
What did you guys do?
Yeah.
What were we doing? And sometimes, you see, one of the things that I've been very interested in has been the history of Kenya. And I've mostly been interested in the history of our people, those who are not politicians. Just how did they survive in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s? And when you really think about it, these people suffered and they lived very hard lives so that today we can live a better life. And I went to Turkana recently to interview an old man who was about 96. And he doesn't live in Turkana town. He lives way out. And when I got to his place and I was driving a Land Rover, he said, this is the reason why I fought for independence. Because we would never have been seen driving a Land Rover unless it was owned by someone else who was white. There was no chance in hell of a person like you, as dark as you, driving a car like that freely and going from county to county without a problem. When I think about what that means for us, it means that we have to be purveyors of prosperity for the next generation. We need to be doing a much better job. We really are not.
What makes you say so? What is it that we are doing today that you think our future generations will look back and think, these people must have been lunatics?
Well, I think that if you just look at just this one conversation that you guys have been running for the last, I don't know how many weeks, months, about this debt situation, it is in our plans to borrow more. We have borrowed 2.something trillion so far, and we are not stopped. Next year, we'll have borrowed double that. And when you listen to the economists, you're seeing that there's one particular thing that we're not doing well, which is that we're not tying ourselves to Chapter 12 of the Constitution anymore. That one we just threw out the window and forgot about it. And so when you think about the challenges that all of this debt is portending for actual human beings outside of Nairobi, because sometimes we think of Nairobi as Kenya. But Nairobi is in Kenya. Where I live, in the county that I live in, there is a woman who started bearing children at 13, who is now 35, does not have an ID card, has 10 to 12 children, and earns 300 shillings a day.
The firstborn is 22 years old.
The firstborn is 22 years old.
Of course, the firstborn doesn't have an ID as well.
She does not have an ID and rides a boda, but also makes about 200 bob. Chances are really high that that 22-year-old has a wife and already 2 or 3 children, dropped out of school in Standard 3. In 2020, when I was moving into Kilifi County, I went and met with 900 women over that period. They meet in these things called chamas, or they meet, they're called table banking groups. They meet every Friday or every Thursday, one of those days. And so I went to meet them, and I would ask them very basic questions. How many kids do you have? How long have you been married? How far did you go to school? Out of 900 women, 680 dropped out at Standard 2.
Two.
Why did they drop out?
Various reasons. First of all, they started late, so by the time they were in Standard 2, they were 13 years old. Many of them got pregnant. Almost all of them, there was no money to keep them in school anyway. In almost all instances, the schools that we're talking about are made of mud, don't have real desks, don't have books.
Some
There's
don't
no
even
real
have,
reason.
Some don't even have doors and windows.
Right. So there's no real reason to stay in school. School was really a daycare at the very beginning. These women that we're talking about are living a life where they're trying to feed these children, and many of them have land. That those families have land. You'll find that they have. You guys have been seeing on some of these, especially Gekuyu stations. You're here in Maguta.
Yeah.
All the land that you're hearing is available in Malindi is being sold by these families, who this is their last straw. Tourism died, so it cannot fend for their children anymore. Then they went back to shags and they started cutting down trees for charcoal. They've cleared whole woodlands. And now, what do they have to do with this land? They don't farm. To put a borehole in a lot of that land is more than 2 million shillings. Who is going to go all the way to the community borehole to go and fetch water so that we can come and pour it into the ground so that we can grow something? So we grow hungry. This is actually real situations. Now, when you think about the fact that we are borrowing, and then it's going into general support of the budget, and then we use that money to refurbish State House, or we use that money so that we can do this NADCO report. No, not just the report. We've got bills in there.
9.
Now we've created new offices, right? Yep. These new offices are going to have staff, and these staff are going to need to be remunerated extremely well. All of these things are going to be happening at a time when we accept that more than 70% of Kenyans live in rural areas. And the further away you are from the center, whichever center that is, the further away you are from any government services that you can speak of, the further away you are from opportunities. Last December, the community that I work in, because I work in a co-working space that we created in Malindi called Maono. And it is a community of change makers, this community-based organizations, thespians, actors, that sort of thing. Last year, that group went and mapped out all of Kilifi's health and education facilities. The biggest thing that was found is that, yes, as you would expect, many of those facilities have no doctors, many of those facilities have no equipment. There are facilities where there's a maternity room, but that's where the doctor lives. Because we built the facility and then we forgot to provide for where the doctor will live. So if a woman comes to give birth, then he has to organize himself a little bit.
Create space
in his what is now his house. Room. Using that bed, which he probably uses. She gives birth, she finishes, and he tries to get her out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah?
Okay, I'm sorry.
So that he can go
Is this
back
a
home.
true story?
This is a true story.
Please just, sorry. I
Yes.
usually need some kind of clarification.
Please
so
do.
that then my chagrin can now be well-founded.
Yes.
This is not an imagined situation where we're talking about this is what would happen because we've not built the quarters for a doctor, or this is real.
This is a real place.
Today.
In 2024, January, this is a real place where the medical officer actually lives in a maternity ward. He needs to get that woman to leave as quickly as possible so that he goes back home.
Okay, so allow me to ask this question. A lot of times when we talk about a number of these things and looking at what priorities should be nationhood, and I often say that the face of a nation or the state of a nation is the condition of its most vulnerable or its individual.
Yes.
Not community.
Yes.
Not family.
Yes.
Individual. If you have one person among millions who suffers to an extent not within their own making, that's the face of the nation.
Yes.
That because that one is what now taints the rest of the image. So that is the situation we look at. So oftentimes when we have the finger and we start naming things and we talk about the health system being in a mess, education is going to the dogs, economy is in the doldrums, then we are not actually being sensationalist, are we?
I can tell you this. 80% of the time I listen here on this station, on TV or whatever, I listen to people talking about the state of the nation and talk about the state of health. I have recently learned that we don't know what we're talking about. I challenge anyone to leave this beautiful county of Nairobi, ignoring the fact that there are slums and there are what you call low-income neighborhoods and people are suffering.
Informal settlements.
Informal settlement and so on. And take a drive 2 hours outside of Nairobi.
Direction.
Or take a flight to Kilifi. Then don't stop there. Don't go to Malindi. Land at the Malindi International Airport. Take a car and drive 2 hours.
Which direction?
In whichever direction you choose. Just make sure
you'll still be within Kilifi County.
You'll be in Kilifi County. In fact, if you drive 4 hours, you'll still be in Kilifi County. Go even as far as the next county over, which is Tana River, or the next county over, which is Garissa, and just look at the state of human beings' lives. Look at what people are living when we're talking about, we really need to prioritize water and sanitation.
Yeah.
Honestly, we have no idea what we're talking about. We have no idea that there are children in 2024 who wake up in the morning early, going to school, have to pass by the woods so that they can fetch firewood and the girls can fetch water, which they go with to school, or they don't. They go back home with it and then go to school, which means they're definitely going to be late.
Yep.
And we're expecting that these children are going to be competing. They're going to be competing with these ones who are here in Nairobi at Kimathi Primary School, even at Kibera's schools. Olympic. Really. It is a dire situation that we're living here. And unfortunately, 70% plus of Kenyans live in rural areas. The point that I need you to remember, if you remember nothing else I have said today, is the further away you get from the nearest town, the further away you are from any service. That woman I was telling you who does not have an ID, the reason she doesn't have an ID is that she has to take transport and pay 200 shillings. Remember how much I told you she earns? Each way to go to town, to go to that place where she's going to be told, umekuja na photocopy ya ID ya baba yako. She didn't know she was supposed to come up with this photocopy. Then she has to go back home and plan another trip back. What are the chances she does that on 300 bob a day?
She's not going to go.
Now, here's the worst thing that you need to know, City. Many women die in Kilifi County, not because of the unavailability of the health facilities, but because oftentimes it is near impossible to get to the facility. So I live in Changoto. The nearest facility is in Adu. I have to get on a motorbike at 9 months pregnancy to be shaken up on a road that really is not even a Maram road. And worse, if it was like when we were trying to collect that data in December, when it has rained, there are places where she has to get off the motorbike and cross the flooded riverbed while the piki guy is holding it up. True story, honestly.
Holding what up?
The
Piki. The motorbike. You have to hold it up.
And the woman has
so
to
that
wade across
you can't
the river.
drive it into the water. You have to carry it. So you carry it along while she makes do or somebody is helping her along. Get to the other side. She gets onto the motorbike and they are slipping and sliding. What are the chances of the miscarriage?
Oh, close to 100%.
Yes.
So the better option is
and
just
what
give birth at
happens,
home.
so that you know that this is mostly not reported, is that if this child dies near that river, why should we bother continuing?
Just go back.
We just go back.
Yeah.
We don't even bother to tell the chief that it's happened again.
Yeah.
If you meet the chiefs of those places, they're so jaded because they have seen so much that. And meanwhile, we're talking about the fact that we are needing to borrow 2.5 so that it does general support, so that it pays salaries. Are we serious?
Yes, we are.
I was looking on, you guys have talked about a lot of stories. I was looking on Twitter the other day, and there's a wonderful person who decided to tell us about why the Lake Turkana wind project failed. And I was amazed. We are talking about a KPLC that last year this year posted 319 million in net profit.
Yep, half year profit.
While we are encountering load shedding and blackouts and all this as the order of the day, that even presidential functions encounter blackouts in the middle of speeches, right? What are we doing having a KPLC giving us profits? What are those profits for? When you really ask yourself these questions. And so when our grandchildren are going to be looking at us in the future and seeing that we have a country that is lagging so far behind where energy is concerned, whereas there are some wind turbines up in Lake Turkana whose energy we cannot ferry because we just didn't complete an electricity line. Really, what are we talking about?
It was a whole complete disaster.
All down, yes.
Because we all saw it. Lake Turkana wind power project started. Everybody knew it. I was driving on Mombasa Road every morning for many months, and you'd see those turbines being transported from Mombasa through Mombasa Road.
Yes.
They are put somewhere at some yard on Eastern Bypass. Then they are transported from here to Loyangalani.
Yes.
Over 500 kilometers away. Everybody knows. Many of them went up. They were then installed. They switched on. They tested. Stima iko bzz, 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 stima imeingia. And then they tell Kenya Power, now we are ready to give you power. Kenya Power is like, we are ready to receive power. But the guy who's supposed to do the connection for us is Ketrako. Ketrako mko wapi? Sasa unajua, tulikuwa tunangoja huyu jamaa atengeneza hiyo evacuation line ajatengeneza. That's always going to be a story that you'll ask yourself very many questions.
So what our children are going to read is that we had to pay
so many months.
We paid 14 billion shillings
for power that was being generated.
But we are paying 8.5 billion every year for power that we are not consuming until that evacuation line has been finished.
It's 7:30. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Al Kags. He is the executive director of the Open Institute. We're talking about the next steps. We have had a conversation about our national debt for a long time. Now he says, let's look at the next conversation that we should be having regarding this debt. Keep it here. We'll be back shortly. Let's take this break. Take a look at the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. That's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
Who is a hustler?
Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyerere Road? Very high fence. You can't even
Windows
sleep inside.
up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk that midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Saints and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with Spice
Sunny in Nairobi
FM.
this morning, 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and we'll see highs of 27. In a sunny Nakuru at 16, 14 and sunny in Nyeri with highs of 28. And we're looking into sunny Eldoret at 15, going to highs of 25. Mombasa is sunny at 28 with highs of 33 and we'll see highs of 33. In a mostly sunny Malindi at 28. Looking into Kisumu, it's cloudy at 22 with highs of 30, while in Kakamega, 19 degrees, sunny highs of 30 and lows of 17. Kampala's cloudy at 20 with highs of 29, while it's partly cloudy at 28 in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 31. Mogadishu this morning is sunny at 28 and Addis Ababa is sunny at 15 with sunny conditions in Johannesburg at 17. It's clear in Lagos at 26 going to highs of 34 and light rain continues in Kinshasa at 26 going to highs of 33.
Spice up your life.
We are at a few minutes after 7:30 into traffic hour proper, and there really is traffic everywhere you look this morning. Haile Selassie, very busy. So if you're trying to get into the city centre, doesn't matter where you're coming from, quite some of it. And we know that folks are travelling all over the city and all over the country today as schools open today and tomorrow after the midterm. So that's where a lot of this traffic is coming from. So, you know, hang on, hold on to your horses. It'll dissipate at some point. On the Thika Superhighway, heavy inbound traffic is still the same on Limuru Road as well as Kiambu Road. We're well past the DCI headquarters junction, or rather gates. There was traffic this morning and well beyond Karura Gate C. So just in case you're there, it's going to take some time to get towards Muthaiga Square. It's heavy on Waiaki Way as you're approaching Westlands at the roundabout. And on Ngong Road, it's also very busy as well, coming in from Naivasha Road, comes back onto Ngong Road and then into the CBD. All right, so we're into traffic hour and we're in it tight. Let's see what happens as we get through Spice FMKE on X hashtag, the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
News with Al Kaggs, the executive director of the Open Institute. So, how then would you like to phrase the conversation on that?
So, I think there's a couple of things that we, in my view, must do.
Okay.
Number one, let us begin calling spades spades.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stop calling them gilded spoons, golden, and other things. The challenge that currently exists, according to Treasury, is that 67% of GDP is being spent on debt.
Maybe more.
Do we know what that means?
Of revenues.
Does your brother in the village know what that means?
No.
So Kenyans right now do not know what the issues are. The contracts that were done for the SGR, for Aurora Kimwarer, for that wind turbine project that we were just talking about, all of these things are not public. So we all can speculate and maybe listen to Jimmy Wanjigi as he tells us what he knows. But we haven't seen these documents, so we don't really know. We need to know. Number two, our president has told us that he spends 7.2 shillings on debt and 3 shillings on
everything else.
But are we living like a country that is in dire straits?
No.
When you really think about it, we're not living like a country that is in trouble. If you think about your own house, which is how Kenyans would understand it. So you have debt from KCB, your SACCO has given you a loan, you are almost defaulting. You have gone all the way down to Fuliza, to Tala, and all these other guys. You have gotten to a place
to the
where
local kiosk.
You are borrowing even from Mamamboga. Now, if you are in that particular situation, is that the time to buy a new car?
Nope.
No.
But that's what we're doing, right? So that we can say that we're doing development. When there are government officials who have not been paid salaries in months, we are talking about this. At what point do we begin to get serious? Now, when I ask myself where the blame must go, I realized that the blame must go to our representatives in Parliament because they allowed for Parliament to become a department of the government, and not just in this administration, even in the previous one. They allowed themselves to become a department that can be called into a meeting in Naivasha and told, this is how you guys shall legislate. This is what your agenda shall be. And they allowed themselves to be so partisan that the truth is Kenyans don't have a say. Now, those two combinations are really dangerous, because now we who elected these people, who don't live in Nairobi, I've just described to you, who dropped out of school in standard 3, who are struggling day in, day out to make 300 bob.
Who are in the majority.
Who are in the vast majority, are supposed to hold these buggers into account. And they don't ever come home. How do we hold them into account if we don't know what they're doing?
Right.
How do we hold them into account if when we open our TV, the president tells us we are now in debt distress? What does out of debt distress mean? What should it actually mean? Debt distress should actually mean that to some extent we are producing something. To some extent there is employment, and not that housing project. That there is actual jobs for everyone, and without the justification that is saying that kazi ni kazi, we have to now get serious about these things. One of the things that this government has found itself, and I think we have to depoliticize the situation we are in. It's not about Kini Kwanza and about Azimio. The fact of the matter is, if Azimio was here, they would be facing the exact same challenges.
Yep.
They would still be needing to pay that Eurobond that was taken in 2014.
Yep.
And they need to pay it now, right? So that's not a partisan issue. They might have decided to do one or two things differently, but they really, when you really think about it, are not going to be far off.
The wiggle room
is very little. They still would have had to dance to the tune of our friends at the IMF.
Yeah.
We are slaves. Let's call ourselves slaves. Let's talk about how we free ourselves into slavery. In my mind, we have to decide on how to renegotiate our debt situation. We have to get to a place, if we are talking about debts that we can prove that are odious, then we must hold some people to account. For us to be able to do that, those documents must come public.
So you're saying, for us to call a spade, we must put the spade here.
Right in front of everybody.
And look at it.
And agree that,
does it actually conform to all the characteristics of what forms a spade?
Yes.
Does it have, the shape of a spade of the beginning? Does it have the shape of a spade at the end? Does it have a handle? Is it a spade?
Yes.
Then we all say it's a spade.
Yes.
Right now we are discussing something that we can't see. We're just seeing bits of it.
It's like when I started texting you about this issue.
Yeah.
I was getting very tired because of the fact that we are really analyzing this, how we got here. And we've analyzed this so thoroughly. I have seen so much analysis. I have even traveled here to Nairobi to go into some fancy hotels and listen to some pundits tell us some really grim stories and really analyze. But you know what? We say that the SGR was overpaid by double or triple. Says who? Where did the money go? We say that there was a subscription fee that was supposed to be 10%, but we upped it just because we could to a 40%. Okay, fine. Can we track that money? Can we see that money? Can we see exactly how much has actually come into this country? Can we put that against this SGR and say, okay, SGR imetusaidia. This expressway here helped me to get here in 5 minutes. I don't know whether it was value for money because I've never seen the contracts that are involved with this. And Kenyans can read. Even those ones who dropped out of school
have
community-based organizations that will read and will break it down for them, and they will understand. So that they can be able to go to the Malindi MP and say, when you go back and you hear something like raise debt ceiling, tukuone ukiraise. Jaribo. But the fact that they do not have an understanding of all of these things that are going on, it becomes very difficult.
Are you talking about civic education then?
I'm talking about civic education, which unfortunately we only do once every 5 years.
Yeah, we do voter education.
Right, we do voter education. We go and even within our non-profits, we do civic education at the end.
Yep.
So this is a young person who you're not telling to go and collect an ID card at the very last minute, to go and get their voter's card at the very last minute. And this is a person who's supposed to vote correctly.
So civic education is not something that should be a one-time thing.
It shouldn't.
We're talking about a continuous process of insistent and deliberate education, because all these times that we keep, even we've heard it, and it has become almost buzzword sometimes.
Yes.
Leaders will say, well, you are the ones who voted us in, then we should be held to account. But essentially what we're saying here is that if I don't share something with you, the likelihood of me knowing that if you knew,
Yes.
I would not be in this position. It puts me in a particularly sweet position, doesn't it?
It does. And you see, we must keep our people busy. So every time there's an accountability issue, we say it is our people who are being targeted, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
We then make sure that it goes into court, and somehow we don't know what happens. Then after a few years, when we are supposed to have forgotten about it, well, you're released. And we say that Latif is now acquitted because there was no evidence. The fact that there was no evidence doesn't mean that Latif didn't steal, right? But who are we to say anything about it now? The other thing about calling spades is that we need to agree that Parliament has to start doing its job.
Allow me to just disagree with you right there.
Yes.
No, that agreement won't work.
We can't get them to do their job?
No. I'm saying no for the fifth time,
But we are paying them $1 million shillings.
Yes. The no here is not that I'm disagreeing with the principle of the uselessness of members of Parliament. There we're in complete agreement there.
Yes.
The no is because we cannot begin a statement that relates to members of Parliament with a prescription that we must, because that is the stock narrative and it hasn't worked. We must begin with a completely different story. And the story has to be with a question. How do we get rid of our MPs, or how do we ensure that these people actually get to do what they are supposed to do? Because they won't.
But we have precedent.
Well, like when?
In 2011, Kenya was the first country to release open data to the public. First country in sub-Saharan Africa. One of the data sets that was released was CDF. What happened was that a number of civil society organizations went to the ground in Western Kenya and wanted to see where some of these projects were. I think it was Kakamega or maybe Bungoma. I'm not sure which of the two.
Or maybe Busia.
I think it was actually one of the two. They went to this place. It was the National Taxpayers Association at this time. They went and saw some villagers and said, we've come to see X school that was funded by the MPs. And they could not understand why the locals were so amused. So they were told, let's go. And they were taken to a beautiful field, nice and green. And they're told, voila.
Here's your school.
There's the school. Okay? That same period, we saw an MCA who had spent 10 million shillings of whatever the word fund is to build public toilets that were actually 4 in number and that were pit latrines. 10 million.
Did they exist?
They existed.
They were pit latrines.
They were pit latrines.
They cost 10 million shillings.
They cost 10 million shillings.
How deep were they?
250,000 a pop.
This is what I need to...
Maybe they're a kilometer
5
deep.
million for one.
No, they also had maybe gilded,
Maybe they're a kilometer deep. You have
Something.
to think. I mean,
we have to think.
Yeah.
So citizens from that area, when they learnt this, now I want to pause there and say something. The truth that we have found as the Open Institute, we did some research and we found all 4 of us and all other 50 million Kenyans, they care more about what is happening at home, in their commute and at work than they care about the 17 billion shillings that we might talk about wherever we are talking about.
Why is that
Yes,
so?
sir.
Why is that so?
Because of the fact that this one they understand. So
Really?
There's a woman
You
who said
relate
to us,
to
You
this.
relate to it.
I relate to it. Look, there's a woman who said to me, I've never touched 1 million shillings. How am I ever going to understand what you're talking about when you're talking about billion?
But now this is my thing, Al.
Yeah.
And that's why I always insist.
Yes.
People always say, well, why do we have to keep talking about the things that are not working? And I say, if you do not,
Yeah.
then you cannot make the connect between what is not working and what should be working. So, in your house, when at that time you're 9 months pregnant and you're trying to make it across the river to a hospital that does not exist, right? In that moment, your reality is the 100 shillings that you have, that you're going to pay half of it to the border guy.
Yes.
And the other half, you're going to hold on to it and hope that maybe you buy a packet of milk for strength after you've delivered your baby.
Right.
That's your reality. You relate to that. In that moment, you care about it.
Yes.
But then what we are maybe even calling actualization is when you realize that, okay, 17 billion shillings in Kenya today would mean that I, as a woman who is giving birth at 9 months, does not have to get on the slippery slope with this border and go to a hospital that maybe does not exist. If it was applied in the right way, would that then become, and that my question after that whole narrative is, does that then become more relatable if you are able to connect with what is not happening and what should be happening?
If.
Here's
the thing. I have 12 children. I dropped out of school at standard 3. My wife dropped out of school at standard 2 because I made her pregnant. She was 13, I was 17. I need to feed all these mouths.
All 13 of them.
All 13 of them.
Right.
On 300 bob. Already as it is, even for you guys who are thumbed, when you hear this story of mathematics, your eyes kind of glaze over. You're telling me, who dropped out of standard 3, that I will understand what you're talking about when you say billion? Aki does not work. It does not work.
So how should you have a conversation with that person so that they see?
So before I go into how I want to have a conversation with that person, I want to go back to what you were saying, that we cannot get our MPs to do. There's precedent. The MCA who built those toilets, this is what happened. People understand how much it is to do pit latrines in their homes.
Yep.
So if you tell me you did 4, all I do is I think back to my 1.
How much did I do 1 for?
Right, so I did 1 for 40,000 or
called
400,000.
so wakakuja wakachimba wiki mbili hapa.
40,000 ni nyingi baba.
Right, I've done mine 40,000. You've done yours 10 million. I want to know why. When they eventually went into some detail, because now that's something they can understand and they can push.
Yep.
When they went into some detail, what they did is that they found that some of that money went into a benchmarking trip to Singapore.
For the pit latrines?
Yeah, so that we understand how, to build the best
sanitation.
We want to
Global
understand,
standards.
Global standards for pit latrines.
Global standards. And then after that, there was some money to go and review the report in Mombasa and so on and so forth. By the time, we get to the pit latrine.
We needed a car.
We needed cars. We needed a few things to be done.
Got it.
And a committee.
Right, and a committee, and committees are working very hard. You say they were working hard. They're working hard.
I never said
They are working hard, boy, these people. Let me tell you, these people are spending sleepless 2 hours of a week to be able to deliberate, because they don't just talk, they deliberate on these issues. Now, when they have done that, when the citizens understood that, what they did is that they made it impossible for MCA to go home to his mother's house. They just made it impossible. He comes with his car, it is stoned and sent back. He comes with another car, the neighborhood hears that he is at his mother's house, they go into his mother's house and says, excuse, leave.
Get out.
Until he made good, and he did make good. I think that story was actually told in this standard.
How many such stories do we get?
So that's the thing. This past year, I saw in April, I saw a community in Gede during the public participation tell the Kilifi County official who had come that we don't want to hear many stories. We hear you speaking English, please, it's okay. Just tell us, this market that was completed but has not been opened for 2 years, that's all we want to know. What's the story? And when is it going to be open? This guy had come fully prepared with a presentation and all that. But what these people did is they said, no, we don't want to hear many stories, just this one.
Our pain point is market.
Is a market, just this market.
Yes.
3 months later, the market was open. I keep seeing these stories in macro levels everywhere. Now, when the only thing that gets these people to move is when they have actionable information, when they understand that information. So that is when we have understood what... Not even the 17 billion, because the 17 billion is national. Let's pick the part of that was in my ward. And then you just tell me, if this little amount was coming to my ward, we would have had a hospital, the one that we need. Now we are talking.
Would it help if the citizenry, the Mwananchi we were speaking of, understood that this money we're speaking of is actually their money. The connection between the billions.
Fundamental, yes.
That's a very complicated thing also.
How complicated is it?
I go and ask citizens all the time that particular question. Between you and president, who's the boss? They say, of course, the president. I say, but why? He says, when he comes here now, we will stand. He is the one who has all the power. He has all the money. But whose money is it? It's his. It's not ours. If it was ours, we would know what to do with it. We know what to do with money. By the way, as Kenyans, we know what to do with money. So when you tell us that it is ours and we've never seen it, please. The thing that I'm trying to get us to understand here is that qua ground, vitu ni different. There's these things that we keep saying.
Why is it impossible for people to understand? Because if you look at our voting patterns, it more or less tells us that the so-called Mwananchi really understands their power. They do. It's the one thing they treasure. They know that with this, I can make a change.
No, they know that with this, my guy can get back in.
But now you see, this is where we differ. Because if we're saying this person is disempowered, and yet you make a statement such as the one you make, then you're proving my point that he does understand that this thing gives them power.
To do what?
Now, that is where that's the crux of the matter. You see, you start from the known. Then you move on to these more complicated issues. Everything you've said, I completely agree with. The disconnect is I earn 300 shillings. That's mine. You tell me 1,000, you've removed me from my reality. How do I connect you to the 1,000, and then to the 10, and then to the 20? I would be more aggrieved and more incensed if somebody was wasting my money. It is not that they don't understand. In my mind, it is resignation. What we see is people who have resigned. They figured, this thing, let me not bother my head too much about it. I have more pressing issues to attend to. Let me focus.
So the thinking here is, this 300 bob that I have earned, I sweat, I toiled, I got the 300.
I understand. It's my reality.
I spend it. I spend it at Babanani's shop. I buy. I spend it here. I pay for this. I go to the school. I pay kidogo money. This is how I balance my life, right?
Yes.
Anything beyond this is coming from Nairobi, is coming from Kilifi, right?
Yes.
And it belongs to ni pesa ya Mngaro and pesa ya Ruto.
Yes.
It's coming. Mngaro has come, he's opening a project, ametuletea maendeleo. Or Ruto was visiting the area and ametuletea. Pesa imetoka Nairobi, ametuletea hapa, right? So how do you then connect? Do you think, and this is just a random thought, do you think the fact that you are not, out of this 300 that you have earned, not a shilling is going as direct tax, then you don't connect with the fact that you actually removed some of your money to go into that pot that Mungaro and Ruto are talking about?
It is not impossible for people to understand these problems. It's just that I want to take you back to the statement I made a while back. People care more about what's happening home, commute to work.
Yes.
So if you tell this person, this road that is coming from your home to your work was supposed to have been fixed last year and the money was there, but it was not there. So please make sure you go to that public participation meeting and ask about that specific project because the money was there in the budget. They don't care how much money it was. No. Just that the money was there and it should have been Lami and it is not even Maram. That's a question that they can go and ask, and they can even, it's something that we can get our head around. Don't tell me about the 17 billion. Don't tell me about 65 billion. Tell me this, that this 65 billion, when you disaggregate it, it was supposed to be this amount in my ward, and it was supposed to be this thing. Can you see this window? From this road here to that Mama Nani's shop, there, we were supposed to have done something. You see there, we were supposed to have done a borehole. If you tell me that, as that person earning the 300 bob per day, now you have connected with me because what you are saying is that I was supposed to have had a borehole here.
But I don't.
Because? Because
right.
What will happen is that I start asking some tough questions.
Is it, look, even as I'm having all these conversations, I've got to go back to that point of whose money was supposed to build the road. Does the citizens directly see that this is their money?
No.
Or is it the MCA who was going to do it? Sasa sababu unajua sisi tulikuwa tumepigia MCA wetu si wa chama ya governor, sasa sisi ndio maana tunadhulumiwa. Sasa basi uchaguzi ujao mjue vile mtafikiria nyinyi watu.
Yes.
Mjue vile mtajipanga maana.
That is actually the reality on the ground.
So then there's no direct connect. It's still feeling that whoever has the power of the purse strings is the one who is donating the money to you. The connection that it's your money is still not there.
And also the fact that it's not specific.
Yes.
When it is not specific, when we are talking about money that should have come here to this community and so on and so forth, it's still not specific. It's money, it's something, it's effervescent. But if you actually went and told me specifics, every time that I have been in a community where they had a discussion about specifics, they held their leaders to account. Every single time, without fail.
You know why I see a direct connection between people and the money?
Yeah.
Is, for example, in markets.
Yes.
Because traders at the market pay for the
license.
For the license on a daily basis.
Yes.
Then those ones are more organized and they're able to demand. Tunalipanga pesa hapa kila siku. Why is the toilet not working?
Why is there no water?
Why is the mulika mwizi not working?
Yes.
Why is the garbage not being collected?
Yes.
Silipi. So there's a direct connection.
Yes.
But beyond that now school and everything else,
or road
and hospital,
you feel like it's money we are going to grab money from Nairobi. We elected a very powerful and vocal person who's gone to Nairobi to champion, and ametuletea hapa.
The thing that we have to do, in my view, is that we have to figure out how to empower our people, mostly through civic education. But trying to make sure that we get so specific that they can actually hold their leaders very specifically to account. Let's not care about the billions, because now that is mathematics. Just help me to understand this project so that they start asking very specific questions.
That's what we want to have in the next hour. We'll continue this conversation and open the phone lines. Many people commenting even on social media. We'll be reading some of those comments. Al Kags is the executive director of the Open Institute. He's our guest. We've been having a debt conversation. What should we do next in our national discourse? 8 a.m. news time.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Despite the government continued promotion of Azimio leader Raila Odinga's ambition to run for the position of Africa Union Commission chairperson, some Kenya Kwanza leaders now say President William Ruto will have an easy time to govern the country once Odinga leaves local politics, led by Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly Gladys Boss. They've said that they support Odinga's ambition, stressing that he is suitable for the position due to his long experience in political matters. Likewise, they have said that they are ready to approve the recommendations in the report of the National Dialogue Committee, that is NADCO, for the benefit of Kenyans.
Na sasa tumefurahi kwamba ataenda huko AU Addis Ababa, alafu aweze kutupatia nafasi, apatie the president wetu His Excellency Dr. William Ruto nafasi kuweza kufanya kazi.
Hiyo ripoti ikifika bunge, tunataka kweli hiyo mswada ingia haraka yenyewe, mtu akipata leader of opposition tupitishe kama tumefunga macho.
Tumepitisha hata hapa saa hii chini ya Madam Speaker ya kwamba mtu ya leader of opposition hata patikana akileta mambo ya furuku ya maandamano katika Kenya hii.
This is Raila Odinga has expressed hope that the implementation of the report, that is the NADCO report, will solve the problems preventing the formation of the IEBC Commission. Speaking in Sindo South, the ODM members registration campaign in the area, Odinga said the implementation of the NADCO report will enable the creation of IEBC by involving all stakeholders and more transparency. Odinga has also said that the implementation will also avoid the situation where some members of parliament violate party rules and migrate without order.
Tumekubaliana ya kama wale ambao wanakuwa malaya wa siasa, wale ambao wanataka kutoroka kwa chama cha ODM, wanaenda kwa vyama vingine, tawarudisha kwa wananchi.
Githunguri MP Githuri Mushomba has faulted the government for introducing the farm produce tax, even as the government said it will review the law. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua last week said the provision for the tax in the Finance Act 2023 will be reviewed to suit farmers' needs. His remarks followed a backlash from farmers after the government sought a 5% withholding tax on farm produce. Mushomba said the provision is repressive to farmers. Now, women movement in Western region led by the chairperson, Connie Lusweti, has promised to collaborate to reduce cases of early pregnancy in the region by providing counseling to girls.
Bungoma imekuwa leading na watoto early pregnancies, na hii Bungoma pia tunafanya a lot of mentorship. Mlisikia wanapeana pads, wakifanya a lot of mentorship kwa sababu tutaki watoto wetu wasichana wawe nyuma kwa sababu hawajasoma na hawawezi kufikia opportunities. So tumeattack hiyo kabisa. Kakamega imeattack Vihiga na Bungoma, na sisi wote tunapea support Bungoma.
Women living with disabilities are being urged to come forward to benefit from the movement's projects.
Tumeanzisha ya kwamba hii vuguvugu la mama, sisi nasi wa mama walemavu tusiache nyuma, kwa sababu we are also fighting for our space. Sababu tunajua ya kwamba wakati mama anapigania nafasi yake, we are equally an equal woman. So tunataka pia space kwa hii Mlembe women tupate share yetu. We are also having our projects that tunataka zikuwe funded, ambazo tunataka kulenga kwa hiyo launch ya June. Ikuwe fund drive ambayo itakuja kusaidia wamama wa Mlembe ambao ni walemavu Kenya mzima.
A Form 1 student at Mubere High School in Endebess constituency, Trans Nzoia County, has drowned. Endebess constituency police commander Selasio Murithi said the boy, 17-year-old Amos Wanjala Baraza, was stuck in the mud while swimming.
Kwa hii muda wa nusu muhula ambao umepita, kila wakati ungeliona watoto kwa barabara wamefukuzwa ati kwa sababu hawajalipia remedials, hawajalipia mambo ya rim papers. Tunataka kusema kwamba hiyo mpango pia wakati shule zinafunguliwa kwa ula mfupi kuanzia Jumatatu.
The commanders also explained that Amos was together with 3 others who raised the alarm to help save their colleague who was drowning. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
There's traffic on Magadi Road this morning. It's coming in heavy on Gatarongai out towards Langata Road this morning. It's going to, snake along until you get to that junction coming in from Galleria. All right, and then onto Langata Road. It's very busy as you then pass Raila Odinga Way at that junction and then head out towards Aerodrome. So it's very slow there. Jogoo Road started early with traffic, as did Haile Selassie. And it looks like it's going to be like that for the next couple of days as folks get back and all over the country as schools reopen. So Landis Road, very busy. Inbound towards Kamkunji at the roundabout and then onto Haile Selassie. It crosses over with what's coming off of Uhuru Highway out into the CBD and then through towards Westlands. And look at that traffic that's coming in from Chiromo. And then on the other end from Wangari Maathai, Limuru is giving. And then also into the CBD from Muranga Road. It's very heavy towards the Globe Cinema overpass. The Thika Superhighway is not letting up either. Heavy. One more heavy traffic all the way from the junction of Outer Ring and Kiambu Road as well. Well past Karura Gate C now. Limuru Road is busy. It's coming in hot from Village Market and even before that. And Red Hill, the Link Road is also busy as well. We are in traffic hour proper. It's a Monday. It's crazy. You need your wits about. Let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods and we can spread the word. Keep things moving this morning. We'll talk on Spice FM KE on X hashtag The Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
It is the only way to start your day. It's also the only way to know about EcoBank and where it operates. 35 countries in Africa, 4 countries outside Africa.
Getting onto the one platform where your banking transactions continue regardless of where you go, where you land, or where you move to.
Yes.
So because of that one banking group and saying that one platform that you've plugged into, how about a seamless way of doing business that you can pay your bills even when you travel, that those who depend on you can continue to do so. It really doesn't matter where you are. It's a fantastic idea to make sure that you don't have to close anything down or move just because you do. And because of that, it's a better way and it's a better Africa.
Better way, a better Africa. And they have got many branches in Kenya and agency banking in Kenya. So if you open an account with EcoBank today, you can transact within the many branches in the country. And also you can go and deposit, withdraw money from the agency banking network across the country. It's a big thing. As we talk about the plan, the country has many plans. The individuals in this country also have their very many plans. ICE Alliance says, whatever your plan is, please talk to us. And they say, if you send us an email today at plan@icealliance.co.ke, that's plan@icealliance.co.ke, we'll get back to you. We'll have a conversation. So what's your plan? What do you want to do? How can we help you actually think through your plan? How can we help you actualize your plan? What do you need to do? Maybe just set aside 10 bob a day, 200 bob a month, whatever amount, and you're working towards your goal and your plans. For, short-term plans, medium-term plans, long-term plans. It's good if you start early. So I know there are very many students who listen to us on a daily basis. And all of them are thinking, I've got a whole life ahead. Yes, that's true. And it's actually the best time now to start thinking of that whole life ahead of you by putting a plan into action. ICE Lion, plan@icealliance.co.ke. Al Kuggs, Executive Director of Open Institute, stays on for the next hour. We open up the phone lines. We read your comments on social media, on YouTube and Facebook, and X as well, at SpiceFMKE. What should we be discussing about now to make sure that everybody in the country understands? So this is what we talk about debt. This is how then we control our debt, so that our future generation, they'll be looking back and thinking, well, there were some thinkers in the country in the year 2024. City.
Yes.
The thinkers of the country called Swatini, that's what you're saying it. It's called Swatini. It's written as Swatini, but it's pronounced Swatini.
Yes.
Okay. So, give us the proverb.
A man who prides himself on his ancestry is like a potato plant. The best part is underground.
The best part is underground. Right? And Al Kuggs looked at that and said, okay, now, think about the future generations that will be priding themselves in their ancestry, and we are the ancestors.
And then look and saying, hey, we had some really, really useless ancestors.
Do you guys worry that...
We had some proper potatoes for ancestors.
Potato heads.
Do you guys worry that every time we talk about national heroes, we are still talking about people who lived in 1940?
Yeah.
We do. The question we want to ask is, should we redefine the terms by which we bequeath someone that title of hero, or is it that we no longer have heroes?
Actually, we have redefined it. If you look at every December 12th, if you look at the lists that are there, we have redefined it.
Oh, for crying out loud. Yeah.
We have redefined it. Here's the thing that I'd love to see, and here's what I'm hoping Kenyans are going to echo, that the fact of the matter is, kwa ground vitu ni different, and we have to get our people ready to hold their MPs to account. Not change. Let's not get rid of the same buggers. Because you know what? You get rid of them, you get others. And they are the same
mindset.
These guys all want to survive. Because they want to survive, let's just make it, if you have real supervision, you do your job.
Yeah.
Right? So let's just give them real supervision. Whoever is there, even if it's a potato, they will do the job just right, so long as they know, if I don't do my job right,
this is what
this is the consequence. And the beauty about MPs especially, the consequence on the ground can be very real. But the people have to understand what it is. Now, there's a bunch of civil society organizations that are running something called Okoa Uchumi. And one of the things they have been suggesting is that we should get our government to say, can't pay, won't pay. I've heard them, even some of them talking here on this studio, saying can't pay, won't pay. Great, no problem. Yeah, let's say it. Let's do whatever it is that we need to do. But the one other thing that I'm hoping that this government will click and understand, especially once they've taken the money out of our pockets for a minute, or when they've taken their hands out of our pockets to pick whatever is left, is this, that the country can only grow when business grows, and therefore we need to focus our attention on building not those large businesses. I saw in the Standard today we're talking about the dead economy. Not those large businesses. Those ones are important. But imagine if we make it possible for millions of cottage industries to thrive. Imagine if we made it possible for people to import machinery, not products, so that they can come here and they can produce. And then we created markets for them, not Europe, not UAE, just here in Africa. So you told me EcoBank here in Africa, just here in Africa. Let's sell in Ghana. If you go to Ghana today, I saw that they're taking milk powder. We have lots of cows. Please, let's just help these people. Let's go to Chad and send
why
beef.
do you want to go as far as Ghana? Just go to DRC.
We're told.
Yes.
All right. Let's actually create those markets and let's make it possible for people in Kilifi, in Makueni, and so on to produce so that they can package and they can send. All you need to do for that to happen, because Kenyans are wily people. Just make it possible for them to get credit, make it possible for them zero rate. All machines that would help them to do this work, leave it to them, they will do it. If the president truly wanted to create employment, it is not through 10,000 houses here and 5,000 houses here where you've created a whole bunch of Njengo people. It is where you've created a whole ecosystem of people coming up with great ideas and doing stuff.
Or supporting them, because I tend to believe, and here we are, because one of two things happen because looking at this debt issue, and the question has come out over and over and over again, then what must happen? So two things: you pay the debt, but then you also put yourself in a situation whereby you are making your own money,
right?
So that you don't have to go into a situation whereby you are debt dependent.
Yes,
isn't it?
Yes.
And one of the ways to then make the money, because I think we often get it confused, it's not the government's business to create jobs. So every time somebody says, I want to come and create jobs, I often get very uncomfortable.
Yes.
When a would-be president or would-be leader says,
I'm creating jobs.
It's not your job.
Yes.
You're not supposed to be doing that.
Yes.
What you must do is create what you're saying now, an environment where these things then will naturally happen. That your people are innovative. They are. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the person with a PhD or the person who knows how to weave a basket.
Yes.
Your people are naturally innovative and they're actually quite resilient. They will have the ideas. They will create. Your job is to make sure that the environment where they operate is conducive for these things to happen.
Right.
So to make the basket, do they need access to credit? They do. Can you make sure your structures are there to make sure that they can have access? Not go and bring your great-grandfather's first wife's ID. No.
Yes.
Can you make it possible for them to do this? Then the person with the PhD, if you have granted him or her the education that they need, and then now that they are saying here are policies that would work, how about you then implement them?
Yes.
And make it possible for them to work. But then we seem to be stuck with that big I word. The implementation of these things. And so my question is here, why is implementation an issue? Why? Because that seems to be the thing. We talk about this milk powder, for example. Why? We throw milk. It rained. Githunguri, they threw milk away again in 2023. Again, there was a glut, we threw milk away.
Then we have
And then we
bumper
are saying-
harvests of maize and we throw that away as well.
Yes, and we're saying that DR Congo, a plane ride away, 3 hours you're there, we're saying that there's a market there. What's the link here that needs to happen?
You know you know what the problem, as I understand it, and I think I agree with you on this one, it is the fact that we have such a poor mentality. We have such a now mentality. We want to eat everything that is on the buffet now, because we cannot create an environment where we can continue having a buffet every day. We can't think tomorrow. We have to think today. And every time that you have these conversations where you're saying, look, let KPLC not make a profit for the next 5 years, but make sure that the cost of power actually goes down to a place where that allows for everyone to thrive. Everyone who has a machine can thrive and do their business. I went to a factory in Mombasa the other day, and I saw that they only operate at certain hours of the day, and they have reduced their production times to a third for 2 reasons. It's just too expensive to run the machines, and there's not enough people buying. So that means that they've actually fired people. There's an informal research that was done the other day that I saw on Twitter that said that many companies that used to have 5 people, 10 people, that level of company, now have 2. And they have moved from their original office that was in Kilimani, for example, or in town or whatever, to Rwaka or somewhere outside town, where it is cheaper for them to operate. I saw in Kilifi a person who used to have a printing press. A printing press is probably the size of this room. He used to have a printing press in Mombasa doing business cards, etc., etc. Life became so impossible. So now he has taken his printing press to Kilifi, to rural Kilifi, a place called Matsangoni. He has gone and created a karoom there where he can now do his printing press. He has fired most of the people that used to work for him. He is now looking for jobs in Mombasa. Once he gets those jobs, he comes, he prints, then he goes back that way. That is what is actually happening on the ground in this economy. If the president truly wants to create employment in this place, then all he has to do is to actually let that guy in Matsangoni thrive. Because that guy in Matsangoni is going to re-employ people in Matsangoni, train a few more young people, and we'll start to see a different sort of atmosphere. The way that we're going right now, where we're taxing everything, soon we're going to be taxing oxygen, it's just not going to work.
It's not helping. But then there's the issue of accountability that you talked about. And the example of Professor Kivuda Kibwana and Makueni comes to mind, because he's even sat here and we asked him, and I've been to Makueni and I've also asked him directly, so what is it that you are doing? And he said, you know what, it's a people-centered governance system.
Yes.
Where every decision is made with the people in mind, where the local market people had on their notice board the county's budget and the amount of money that has been earmarked for this particular market and the project. And whether we're doing phase 1, we shall be able to do this and that. We shall put up the lights in phase 1, and this is the amount of money. And these are the people who are in charge of that. The next one, we shall be doing the wall for the market. The next one, we shall be doing the toilets and all. And then the people then are more involved in saying what is a bigger concern for them. Is it the lights? Is it the toilet? Is it the wall? Is it the water? And in fact, he talked about a project which was supported by, some development partner. Came in and they wanted, I think, to do lights. Was it lights or was it public toilets? But the market community said, no. Our priority right now is not this. It is actually, we want a mulika mwizi, so then if the lights are on, we can work on later. We can close our businesses much later. We'll be able to earn more. And they had to change it because the people said, this is what we need. And they knew how much. And they said that because the governor came and told them, so we have gotten some help from this particular donor, and they're saying they'd like to help us with this particular project. What do you think? Public participation started. Yeah, it's a good idea, but how about we start with this? and then we can go into this. And we can even save some of that money. And you see, it's people understanding from the basics, from my local, like you said. If I understand what is affecting me and how much it costs, then now from after I've gotten that sorted, I can start talking about the bigger thing. So my market, all right, so let's talk about the other things that happen. Let's talk about, all right, mango. We want to create a market for mangoes. We'll be doing this. We'll be forming ourselves into groups. We'll be sending our mangoes into this particular cooperative. Then the cooperative, then you're going to put money into putting a factory in water. That factory then will take all our mangoes. And, people start now connecting and seeing this is what is important.
And as soon as they see that, they immediately decide, what, I'm going to get a loan from the SACCO to buy a pickup.
Yep.
Because I can see there's going to be business. People, once government creates the environment, people will do what they need to do to create prosperity. They do not need for government to actually create the projects for prosperity.
But does it then not mean that they do understand with great clarity what they can do, but they limit their aspirations or the exhibition of the aspirations because of the limited circumstances? The example of Makueni is an excellent one because the first term of Governor Kibwana, he actually physically went into a public participation program for his people. He
personally, yes.
Yes, with his people. So when your governor is telling you what we are saying here and saying this is actually your money, it is you who needs to tell through your MCAs what you want to do with this money. It is your money. And he does that effectively. It is because of that I believe he had the confidence to say, look, if the MCAs have gotten to this point where they want me out, let's just break this thing up and go for re-election. And when indeed the 5 years were up, literally all the MCAs bar one were exited by their own people. Okay? Now, he led from the front by example. Okay? It's unique.
Yes.
Now, how many other governors can we even say entertain the thought? Forget doing it. Doing it begins entertaining the thought. Because if they did it, the message would be home. Because this is the governor, the person who you know as the boss telling you, actually, this is your money. You will believe him because he's telling you.
I actually think we should move away from looking and expecting the governors to come and emulate Professor Kivuza Kibwana. We should ask we, the citizens, to emulate the citizens of Makueni County. Right? So that then all of us can start saying, wait a minute, kuja. Ati umesema unataka kutengeneza barrows Nairobi.
Okay.
Barrows ni nini?
Right.
Barrows.
Here's the thing. There is a system around citizens that currently exists.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, when we look at that system, we think about the government side, where we think about the MCAs and the chief and so on.
Yeah.
But in the non-profit side, there's a whole bunch of people that I call them change makers, because I have met so many around this country. I've met them in Nandi, I have met them in Kilifi, I've met them in Mombasa, I've met them even here in Nairobi. These are guys he works as a makanga, he gets 600 bob, and he uses 300 bob to go and educate his community through something called magnet theater on something that is relevant to that community, on how to change behavior in some ways. I am seeing community-based organizations that are using that small platform to pull 3,000 women together so that they can tell them that you have power. I have seen community-based organizations that are working with those young women that I was telling you about, who are getting their first child at age 13 and saying, you know what, you can choose not to get another child so that this one, we manage one. Because otherwise we will manage 12 like your mom, and you can see your mom isn't doing well with this thing. These community-based organizations, these change makers, these magnet theater guys who are working within the community, those are the guys that we need all of us to support. And we support them not even with money per se. Money is great. But even just making sure that they have the correct information, making sure that we are reaching down to them. We have people in rural Kenya. There's an influencer, YouTuber who has hundreds of views, and he's in Tana River. And he's not speaking Kiswahili. He's speaking Orma,
And Pokomo.
You know what I mean? If you've got that person who then can understand properly and has a following, and that following is not a Nairobi following, and you get that person to actually begin to do civic education, if we decentralize the idea of civic education so that we are not waiting for the large open institute or the whatever organizations to go down to the ground to do it, one of the things that we will see is a groundswell of people having a better understanding of what it is that they're looking for. When I was telling you about that Gede story, what had preceded it was that community-based organizations had gone into those communities with manila papers as tools and said, what is the most important thing in this community? And they wrote it down on the manila papers. So when people went to public participation, they went with knowledge. One of the biggest challenges within public participation is the fact that when I go alone, I'm afraid. In Kiambu, we saw a woman who said something that was unpopular, and she was shouted down by the rest of the people who were there. Forget by the government. In fact, she became so afraid. What if we created an environment where she goes with a bogey of people who believe what she believes? If those ones shout, she can also shout. And therefore, there can be a discussion. The thing that we have to create around the citizen on the ground so that they have that information that we want is just to activate those small networks.
But then, what you're saying has been said before. What you're saying, in terms of how do we make sure that we have CBOs that are active, CBOs that feel supported, and I guess maybe what they also need is that support in terms of information. Proper information that then they break down and they can use to go to the communities with on a regular basis, trustworthy information, and then upwards where you need more activism and lobbying at a higher level. You support them also going up. You've said that, and I've remembered last week when we were in Kilifi for a conversation about climate change and climate action. I came across this guy, let's just call him a young man, who is a leader of a community-based organization that took a matter to court regarding the exportation of the baobab tree from Kilifi. And these are guys from just local community who are active. They heard, okay, so this mzee is the one from whose farm the big baobab was. And they went to that mzee and asked, mzee, did you give them permission to take the baobab? Walisema wanaenda kufanya utafiti. Alafu umelipa pesa. Wakifanya utafiti sasa wakiona kama huu mbuyu wangu sasa umetosha, nitalipa pesa zangu. And it's like, you see, the kind of information that people have been given is just being taken advantage of, and raising that to the Ministry of Environment up to a point where Soipantuye had said, pause. Unfortunately, it continued. But getting into that level, what can the Open Institute do to then support vertically going down and going up that community-based organization to be properly resourced with information and also to be supported in national advocacy?
So what we have done since 2020 is that we actually have created a space called Maono Space that is in Malindi that currently has 700 members. It's a co-working space, kind of like all these co-working spaces that we have here in Nairobi. But for those organizations to actually be able to do three things: they can meet, they can work, they can network, they can work, and they can collaborate. Those three important things. Because of the fact that they don't need to now pay for office spaces, they don't need to pay for internet and all these things. They all come to one place and they start working, and they are doing some amazing things. Some of them, I think I'm seeing them on our channel here, commenting. So that's a powerful thing. And because of the fact that they're coming together, it becomes then possible for CT to come to Malindi and sit with them as a group and actually impart some knowledge that they will then use back on the ground. What are the kind of jobs that these guys are doing? They're doing something called magnet theater, which I learned about only 2 years ago. And what magnet theater is that they go into they're thespians who go into a village. They actually begin to do their skit, and people come to watch that, and then they start engaging them on the real issues. I'm seeing them grabbing knowledge from all kind of places so that they can be able to take it down to their communities at very, very low costs. We're doing this now in Nandi. We are now starting to do that in Nandi as well. And we are seeing some amazing community-based organizations that are doing that. But also we are seeing photographers starting to create photo stories that they are publishing so that then, it inspires action out of people in the middle class who sometimes we have to bring art to them so that they can be, inspired to do something because they will not go down to the ground. And that sort of experience that we have been seeing has proven to us that if you can be able to organize change makers on the ground, these guys are actually going to make their MPs, their MCAs become a lot more accountable. We're seeing that in in true color. And so if we can expand that, if all these large organizations like the Open Institute, because we will not be able to cover all 47 counties in this way, if we have large organizations all doing the same thing, they stop going in their Land Cruisers onto the ground. Because the analogy that I've been using maybe too often lately is I've been asking Latif, who can tell you that you smell and you need to shower?
Your sister.
Has to be somebody extremely close to you.
Yep.
It can be a stranger. But we have situations where we go in Land Cruisers and we go all the way to a village and start telling people, you guys, you need to change your behavior. It cannot work. Civic education cannot happen when we get $1 million, which a lot of these organizations are doing. And then they buy a Land Cruiser and they drive it to a village to try and tell people something in broken English, in broken Kiswahili, trying to explain something to them. If they were actually serious, then what they do is that they actually begin to empower those civil society organizations that are on the ground, those community-based organizations, those change makers. And those guys, because they already know what the fears of the people are, they already have the trust of the people, those are the guys who will actually make sure. And if you really take a look at any village where you are seeing very progressive action, chances are there's some change makers behind that action.
And it's already happening.
And it's happening.
Pause. Let's take a break. It's 26 minutes to 9. Al Kags, the executive director of the Open Institute, is our guest for this hour. And we are discussing what should we move this conversation to next. 11.3 trillion shillings is our debt burden. If you just look in the last 20 years since Mwai Kibaki said, let all the children go to school in January 2003, if you just look at all those years, we have spent about the same amount of money on education, about 10 trillion shillings, if you just think about it. But still, today, Alkags, you just shared a photo of a school that you visited. It's a mud wall school, no window, no desks, and this is in this country. And which year was this that you took the photo?
It was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago?
Yes.
In this country?
In this country.
Just here to in Kilifi?
Yes.
Okay. With all that money, why do we still have this? Why do we still have very many children dropping out of school because of, all these problems? What should we be discussing next? We'll open the phone lines after this break. 0719 012 600.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
With politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with Spice FM.
Highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 28 as well, and a sunny Nakuru at 20. 19 and sunny in Nyeri, and going to highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 26 in a sunny Eldoret at 18. Mombasa is sunny at 29, and at 30, Malindi is also sunny. 24 and sunny conditions in Kisumu, with 23 and sunny conditions in Kakamega. 21 and cloudy in Kampala, going to highs of 29, and in a cloudy Dar es Salaam at 28, we'll see highs of 31. It's 19 and sunny in Johannesburg, going to highs of 27, while in Mogadishu at 31, we'll see highs of 34, and Addis at 16, we'll go to highs of 24. It's clear in Lagos at 26, going to highs of 34, and now showers have turned into full-on rain in Kinshasa at 26, going to highs of 32. So it's a very, very busy morning. Which Nairobi streets don't have traffic? Perhaps is the question we should be asking. Let's look at what's happening from Red Hill, then going towards Greater Limuru Road, and then connecting with what's coming off of United Nations Avenue. Quite some traffic there. Figiri Ridge going in from Kitisuru out towards Peponi. That's all very, very busy this morning. The Red Hill Link Road, where you were escaping traffic coming off of James Gishoro, crossing over Wayaki Way is bumper to bumper. So if you were using that as an escape route, heads up, you might want to think again. And I know if you're going to go down Wayaki, where you're going to find that traffic as well. Ooh, so it's a tight situation here. Which way will you go? You might want to just hedge your bets and just go down Wayaki Way for now. You might stay on the roads longer if you use Red Hill. Am I wrong? Let me know, please. There's an absolute mess on the Thika Superhighway this morning. It is not pretty at all. Coming in all the way from the Outer Ring Junction down to the city. And this whole mishmash of traffic coming in from Muthaiga Square off of Kiambu Road. It's crazy this morning, guys. And we're still in traffic hour. We will be for a while. Do you find an alternate route? The Southern Bypass. I don't know how you're going to get there from where you are, but think about it. We'll talk on Spice FMKE on X hashtag, The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Angela is saying that in
94.4
Vihiga County, traders in Luanda and Kilingili have refused to pay levies until the market is completed. Kilingili has only one toilet. And the traders have said, you know what, why are we paying for only one, and there's only one toilet? Now you can imagine, if there's only one toilet, is garbage being collected from this market and all the other things. So these are issues that are happening, and when people see and they feel the pain and they can see direct action, they take direct action. Citi, you wanted to ask a question before you took a break.
I was actually going to make a statement that the change that we're looking for, let me begin the question. Sometimes one seems to be walking on a treadmill. You don't seem to be making progress. We're saying things, we mean them. People are doing things, they mean them. How do we know that we have achieved what we set out to achieve? How do we measure success? When do we know we have succeeded? When you know, okay, we haven't gotten to where we wanted to go, but the journey has started. That's my question. Now, my statement is, I think there is more change than we acknowledge. I was thinking about this. And I think the current president we have is the right president for the situation that we are in. I'll tell you this. You see, one forgets that when political promises are made, at some level there's the intention to actually get them done. Then there's this little issue of being the president, realize you actually can't do the things you said you're going to do. You actually can't. You may be trying, you may be pulling strings, but you can't. The burden of having raised hopes then comes into play because people expect. And why? Because they don't have. So when you say you're going to bring it, they expect it. Now, when they don't get it, then they react. So even people who ordinarily would not react. Why am I saying it's a good thing? If people can react to the president of the nation, then there's no one they cannot react to. And that's what I'm saying. It is a good thing. And it's a good thing promises were made. And it's a good thing promises are difficult to keep, because the person expecting the fulfillment of the promise doesn't care how difficult it is. You made the promise, keep it. That's as far as they're concerned. So I am saying that I foresee a situation when more and more leaders are going to be held to account. If I am to believe the clips I have seen of the president going somewhere and he's making a speech and the people just chatting away and dancing and singing, or he goes somewhere and there's a crowd, whether that crowd was paid to do whatever they were doing, but that people can have the courage. We've never seen it in this country where a president is spoken to directly by a crowd. Or you call for a meeting and hardly very many people actually attend. They are speaking with their feet. They are telling you, look, we are not going to continue with what we're doing. Now, when that happens, it will get cascaded. It means CSs beware, governors beware, MPs, you're already in trouble. MCAs, you're done for. Because if people see that the president can be told, you haven't delivered what you said. Anybody who's after that, you will have the same story and you'll be told. So the changes that we're talking about, they're actually with us. We don't have to look very far.
True.
Yes.
And the fact that these promises are actually documented.
Yes.
You know, there are several charters that were signed with various interest groups, the farmers, the youth, the teachers, the doctors. It's documented. These are our issues. Are you going to address them? Yeah, we'll address them. It makes people now have something against which to judge the administration. You said you are going to have a 50-50 split of women in top levels of government.
Okay.
How many do we have? Okay. We are looking at it and checking. You said the medics, this is what's going to happen to the medics. You said in agriculture, this is what's going to happen. So we are advancing in our politics, and I agree with you, CT. The fact that we are where we are, the fact that our politics is shifting this way, it's shifting into issues at that top level.
Yes.
Can it come down
to
community level where it's also issues at community level?
And
do we bring it there?
Yeah. How do we bring it there? And Al, even as you talk about that, just linked into that, some of the things that we were discussing is, if we're saying, how do we bring it to that point? How do we institute these things today, as opposed to them being aspirational? I see it as then being directly linked to people who want to come into positions of leadership for issues, and not because of their social expediency or any kind of political position, but really do then have a heartbeat for the development and the sustainability of this nation. How do you make the connect with making these things happen and putting in leaders who for example, is going to bring together that reality that you face on a daily basis? And I think that often is the Achilles heel, because we say, how do people vote? Because we know that there's a direct relation, perceived or otherwise, between the leader that you get and the vote that you cast. How do we get people to make that decision now based on issues?
Do you know something? I don't think there's anywhere in the world where politicians are doing great things because they should do great things. I think they are doing great things. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing because they're being watched extremely closely by their people. And so there's no running away from who bells the cat. The person that bells the cat has to be the citizen. And therefore you have to think about the place where the citizen is operating. But the other thing that we have to think about, which we have not talked about, is this. I've never seen a shower. I've never seen it. Can I aspire for it? If I've never seen a shower,
you don't know it.
If I've never seen water fall from the roof, and I can walk into there and it is warm and I can shower with it, can I aspire for it?
No.
Right?
No.
Many people will tell you that for them to aspire for the jobs that they have become successes at today, they saw somebody.
Yep.
Many people drive a Mercedes-Benz or whatever it is. When you ask them, when do you really want to drive a Mercedes? You discover he was given a lift sometime when he was a young person. I actually heard my friend Abel Mutua say that he really wanted to drive a Mercedes, and because he saw a newscaster driving a Mercedes. He decided the way that he is going to drive it is by becoming a newscaster himself. What am I saying here? Is that the content of what we aspire to sometimes, even in our leaders, is wanting. It is that they have never seen it. So I have become an MCA, but really the farthest I have gone is Eldoret town. And I'm in, somewhere in Uasin Gishu.
I'm in 10.
Right? The farthest I have been is Eldoret. So when you're telling me that I need to aspire to a place that has walkways and all these things, it can be difficult.
So social media makes it possible.
The truth of the matter is it doesn't for many people because of the fact that we don't know how it works. And then now, it becomes worse for the people who are supposed to hold him to account. Because he has gone to Nairobi and gone into a UN conference and they've talked to him about walkways and whatnot. And he's thinking about, okay, so we can create a system for
is that why
pedestrian traffic.
That's why that particular class of individuals like benchmarking?
That's why they love benchmarking. But they like benchmarking because they can go shopping. Because even when I used to work for government and we'd go to conferences, we would have gone maybe 50 of us. But in the actual conference room, there's only 20 of us.
Yeah, the rest of
the others are
at
H&M. Buying a few things for the children.
Of course.
This and spending their per diem. I can tell you, having worked for government many years ago, the number of people that we got out of very questionable places because now they had too much fun. Or too many. These are things that, especially those guys who handle logistics when these people travel abroad, they have to deal with. Look, the thing about it is this. We have to now start to work on that thing that your city was talking about, which was making sure that if we can't get them educated, then we get them exposed. Okay?
Who? The leaders or the people?
No, the people.
The people.
Right.
If we can't get them
the
educated,
leadership comes from the people.
if we can't get, if I am Benjamin, I am 24, I dropped out of school when I was in standard 2. I have never been into a supermarket, and I cannot imagine what a bank looks like. Then let's just do what there's an organization in Mauna called LIT is doing. What they're doing is what they call functional literacy. They're taking this young man and telling him what the government looks like and so on and so forth. Then at the very end of the course, they're saying, let's go on a trip. And they take them, guess where? Naivas. And just show them how to buy things in a supermarket. And it blows their mind that I can literally just collect things from the shelf. And nobody's going to ask me. That blew that young man's mind to the extent that now he has something greater to aspire to. I saw him being taken to a SACCO for the first time, open an account, and take a picture and post it on all his social medias to say, I have an account. It's like a big deal. He does not put the minimum of that SACCO, but every month he puts in 500 bob. The minimum of the SACCO is 2,500. But just the fact that he is still saving that 500 bob is a big thing for me, because this is a person who would eat everything that was in his coffers. Now he's at least saying, if I put this one, something will happen. Can you see where I'm coming from? So where I'm coming from is that it is time that we start to spend a little bit more of our energy to, first of all, get all Kenyans to realize that Nairobi is not Kenya, and that the way that Nairobi operates is not the way it should be operating. That the way development is being discussed in Parliament and in these other places where it is that we increase the debt ceiling so that we can borrow even more, so that we can buy new SUVs. And so that when we go on and onto, what is it called, the national days, and we see our people coming in the latest model SUVs, then we can say, wow, I'm to wait. The only way that we do that is if we begin to expose our people, because maybe we missed the boat on properly educating them, but if we expose them, they begin to say, it's past my time, but my child will stay in school.
But I'll think about this for a second. The ethos that we speak of a time gone by began with education, yes. And the example of the benefit of education was it would be said, I remember my father telling me this, somebody doesn't build a house first, puts iron sheets on the roof. Nobody else has it, that's education. The next thing, you see that person driving a car. People then aspire to go to school because they say, wait a moment, but we know so and so. So this is what education does. Then this going to school is a very good thing. But somewhere along the line, the issue of just working and ensuring that what you earn from your work is what gives you what you need shifted. It shifted monumentally. It is now, what can you steal and yet call it business? What can you pilfer and then call it a deal? And how quickly can you acquire these monuments of wealth, these things that show? And then how conspicuously can you consume it so that people can see that you have actually arrived? Because that is the prevailing ethos.
Yes.
And with that ethos comes a never-ending appetite for more of the same. Now, many of our people who are in leadership may not know this, but it's chapter 101 of a poverty of spirit. Many of these leaders have a poverty of spirit, and they don't even know it. And the psychology that they function with is one of poverty. The cognitive ability to think, reason, and all that begins and ends with how can I acquire more? Now, once you become a slave to that, it doesn't matter. The next opportunity to receive money overtakes everything else. But to justify it and to tell yourself that you're on the right path, we then hear the statements politicians make. How we are going to do this, and this is for the people. And yet, if that is the example, if that is the exposure, and you correctly put it, Al, what do we expect those who are coming after us? What do you think they are seeing? That is the example they are seeing, and because they see it often enough, we've normalized it.
Yes. Here's the thing. We will not get very many people who are going to survive long term in the current in my generation, I want to say. My generation is that one that you're talking about, that we are hustling, which is not longer, it doesn't have the original meaning. We are making deals which don't have the original meaning. We are doing what we must do so that we can drive the big cars and we can live in the big houses and whatever it is, and show off with the biggest slay queens and so on. The truth of the matter is, and I truly believe this because I heard my grandfather say it over and over again, and I think it's seared into me, that it does not matter how flashy you get because of stolen money, you don't end up with that flashy money. So if you want to make generational wealth, which I'm hearing a lot of Gen Zs talking about, right now they think generational wealth means that we do those things. We steal money, we show off. Amass as much as possible, and make sure that we do this on social media so that people can see just how much money we have. Take pictures from all manner of countries so that people can see. But the truth of the matter is, we saw it in my grandfather's generation, that a lot of the people who today would be in Moi's generation, Moi's age, majority of them...
That is the late president.
Majority of them died poor. We are hearing even people who are politicians, who you are told, that guy, the way he would walk this nini, and we would all remove our lessons and put it on the ground for him to walk on. And today, look at him. Those things are now, they come full circle. And I think that what is going to start happening is that there's going to be like a 10%, just 10%, of people who are going to make real business work. The only thing that all of us now need to do so that we can create that first 10%, that first group, is that we have to go back to where we started. We have to get our people holding the government accountable, especially holding, not government, because government is amorphous. They're not going to hold William to account. Who they will hold to account is this person who is they have access to. That one they can see. And that one they can see will then hold the one that they're supposed to be holding accountable. Because now, how do I operate how do I say yes to this bill if it is not going to work for my people? This is the kind of push that we need to have. And I'm very curious to hear what people are saying online about these things, because what I'd love to hear is if they can tell us stories that they have actually seen, so that they support me on this story. If they can tell us stories that they have actually seen of people actually coming together and making a specific change happen in their neighborhoods, I bet that there'll be so many stories.
I'm sure there are very many stories. It's basically bottom-up political agenda, transformation agenda, right?
Yes.
This is it. It's not an economic transformation, it's bottom-up political transformation agenda.
Right.
Starting from the bottom, starting from the local village. And as villagers, you all know this is what we want. Who is responsible for this? Is it the local MCA? Is it the ward administrator? Piling pressure on them and moving it upwards. Very many comments that are coming in on our YouTube channel. Ndu, you can sample a couple.
I mean, it's been going on for a while, and it's... So who's responsible for these errors? What is the budgetary process? Who should we actually hold accountable? The time has come for citizens to start asking the questions why. And another thing that has come out quite clearly for a lot of people is that, look, we are living in a very different reality, that the majority of people who live in these situations which we describe are actually really going through it. These conversations should be held during elections so that people should have an idea of whom they should pick. Citizens can speak out. Governments and specific departments can be held accountable. We can start here if we want to actually change tomorrow. Kenyans will start voting based on issues. Is the day comedians, gamblers, and the wash communities will stop contesting for political positions in this country. People have no connection with tax money. We have connection with what I can see and where I'm operating from. Carrying a motorbike on the head during the rainy season may seem like a story ajaba until we see it. Kujeni huku Kilifi muone.
Mujone. Let me read that one from a series of comments here from Mudhoni Tate. I think she's in that community that you're working in.
Yes, she is.
She says, just recently when I moved to Kilifi, did I realize my ignorance. Now I'm part of the team that wants to get to the bottom of the situation. My team and I at Data Interns are digitizing the budget books from the National Treasury to enable the public to analyze, understand, and access budget data more easily. You'll be surprised to know where your hard-earned money goes. Let's not be ignorant anymore. She says, as we talk about debt, we realized huge errors in the recurrent budget book from the sector of external debt redemption. Did you know that there are huge errors in the published budgets? And then she asks, so who's responsible for these errors? What's the budgetary process? Who should be held accountable? If these questions are then asked at that community level, you just break it down, even county budgets. County budget, and you come into county development and come from county development into ward development fund. So this is the ward development fund. This is the amount of money allocated in this year's budget to this particular ward. And these are the projects. Juxtapose it with a CIDP. This is the Integrated Development Plan. You'll get into big things. Alkags, we thank you very much for joining us today. 9 a.m. Our next guest is Pigeon Odimwengu. He's a community-based mobilizer. We'll continue this conversation with him.
Nice.
9 a.m. Time for the news.
It's the Situation Room